Hello again. The clips of film now circulating which show an autistic teenager being arrested for hate crime, which consisted of telling a policewoman that she looked like a lesbian, will have shocked many people. The fact that the police in that part of the country are so very quick off the mark with a so-called hate crime of this nature, but were very slow to react to the racial targeting of young white girls by gangs of predators of Pakistani origin, which can also be viewed as a hate crime, is ironic. If only the problem, though, was limited to this one part of the country, but it is alas endemic in every police force in Britain. Criminals neither fear nor respect the police these days, and whereas at one time the very sight of the copper on the beat approaching would be enough to make hooligans behave themselves, these days whole van loads of them cannot deter disorder and robbery. One need only consider what happened in Oxford Street the other day. It was swarming with police, including mounted officers, but this had no effect at all upon the outbreak of hooliganism and theft which took place. Those involved simply did not take the police seriously. I am tempted to ask, and who can blame them? The thumbnail to this video shows two new members of the West Yorkshire police who are now patrolling the streets. It is, of course, famously a complaint of the old that police officers are looking younger, but does anybody seriously believe that these two youngsters will be capable of keeping order on the streets of Britain? This is one aspect of what has been happening over the years, and it is directly attributable to immigration. At one time there were height restrictions for those wishing to join the police in this country. For many forces it was 6 foot, for some it was 6'1" or even 6'2". When the drive to make police forces more inclusive and diverse arrived, it was realised that many people of Bangladeshi or Pakistani ancestry are shorter than the average British person, and so such requirements began to be seen as racist. They were then scrapped. There is now no minimum height requirement anywhere in Britain for becoming a police officer. Hence the two children seen in the thumbnail to this video. I give a link in the description to this video to a newspaper article which also shows this photograph. Then too, the aim became, again in the supposed interest of equality, to ensure that half of all police officers were women. Then it was decided that employing people straight from university was a good scheme, so-called graduate entry. This, of course, had the effect of lowering the average age of police officers. The cumulative effect of all these changes has been to generate police officers who are shorter and younger than was once the case, and many of them are women. They may well be better educated than the old-time copper, but that's not necessarily a good thing. For much of the 20th century, the average police officer had served in the armed forces, and this experience was more useful in dealing with dangerous and dishonest men than was a whole lot of book learning. The sight of a 35-year-old, 6'2" tall former soldier with medals for gallantry on his tunic approaching a group of young tearaways was likely to cause them to take thought of how they behaved, far more so than a 5-foot-tall young woman. This is human nature. The police today are not capable of keeping order on the streets, and nor are they able to catch criminals. When they do catch them, they often let them go without charging them, something which would once have been unthinkable. Roughly half of all crimes which are solved do not result in a charge for the offender. I give a link to a bit about this in the description to this video. In other words, the police don't bother to investigate the crimes which really matter to most of us, like burglary and so on, and even when they do and catch the person responsible, there's only a 50-50 chance that he will be charged. Is it any wonder that the streets are unsafe and that gangs of looters are able to operate with impunity in our cities? Whether this has all been done deliberately or not doesn't matter. The fact is that the British police are no longer doing what they have done for years, which is to deter crime and catch criminals and then bring them to justice. They have in effect been crippled by the drive for equality, diversity and inclusion.